Hi, I'm Dr. Gammons. Thank you for viewing this video. This video will be entitled All You Ever Wanted to Know and Then Some About Buprenorphine. This one's not for the faint of heart. It's going to be a little bit of a long one. If you're interested in this product, please try to hang in there with me, bear with me. I think it'll be very helpful. Buprenorphine is a drug. It's an old drug. It's been around for decades. It's what's called a partial opioid agonist. It's been used primarily for analgesia in the intramuscular form, meaning in the shot form, again, for decades. It was recently manufactured as a sublingual product, meaning under the tongue, and marketed under various trade names. Suboxone is the most commonly known trade name for buprenorphine. You've got a trade name called Subutex. Subutex is no longer a branded product, but the word's still used commonly. You've got a newer branded product called Zubsolv. It's important to know that all of these products are buprenorphine. The word Suboxone, the word Subutex, the word Zubsolv, these are just words that have been invented by corporations to market buprenorphine. You're using the same drug. One does not work better or worse than the other. There may be some individual preferences, of course, but at the end of the day, you're using buprenorphine no matter what word you put on it to market it. The guts of this product is buprenorphine. It gets the job done regardless of what trade name you're talking about. So don't get bogged down in the idea of Suboxone's better than Subutex or vice versa, or Zubsolv's easier to come off of than Suboxone. That's just not accurate. Don't think that way. Okay, so why am I making this video? Well, this video is going to be largely devoted to, why does buprenorphine even exist? Why is it such a popular product? Why is opiate dependence, so difficult of a demon to beat? How do people come off buprenorphine? These are questions I get all the time. I've been on buprenorphine, I've been on Suboxone, doc, and I really don't want to be on it anymore. All right, well, I try to live my life in terms of, the facts speak for themselves. Let's look at the record. Let's examine the facts. The facts speak. And the fact is, when I hear somebody say, Dr. Gammons, I want to come off buprenorphine, my first instinct is to say, well, could anything be more obvious that you want to come off buprenorphine? Nobody even wants to know what the word buprenorphine means. I mean, when somebody says, I really don't want to be on buprenorphine anymore, I kind of think, this is tongue-in-cheek here, but I think, duh, could anything be more obvious? You don't want to be on buprenorphine. You don't want to be using Suboxone. You don't even want to know what the word Suboxone means. Please remember, the average person out there driving around, they've never even heard the word Suboxone. Why has an individual heard the word Suboxone? Why do you even know what the product is? Let alone, why have you used it? Well, the reason you've used Suboxone, buprenorphine, under whatever, Subutex, Zubsolv, the reason you're using it is because you've found yourself in a position where you're physically dependent upon opioids. So by definition, opiate dependence is not a good place. It's a bad place to be. So, of course you want to come off Suboxone. You don't want to be on it anymore. You never even wanted to be on it in the first place. So that's kind of the bad news, but here's the good news. Buprenorphine is a pretty reasonable alternative to street opioids that are abused, that are what we call traditional full opioid agonists. Now this will run the gamut from painkillers like hydrocodone. Hydrocodone, that's going to be your Vicodins, your Lortabs, your Lorcets, your Norcos. Because of restrictions on acetaminophen, now it's kind of dwindled down to what used to be called Norco. Norco, again, is just a word invented to market hydrocodone plus acetaminophen. And then, of course, other street abusable opiates are going to be oxycodone, hydromorphone, oxymorphone, methadone, street heroin. These are all what we call traditional full agonist opioids. Again, very habit-forming, very addictive. All right, so why are you on buprenorphine? Why does an individual go to buprenorphine? Well, because that individual had the sense, the good sense, to say, you know, I can't stop using these street opiates. You know, I've tried for years. I've tried to, you know, quit cold turkey, quote unquote, and I just can't seem to stay stopped. So I got to face the facts. Remember, the facts speak for themselves. The fact are, by the time you get to me or a doctor like me, by the time you get to buprenorphine for your first visit, you're not on a winning streak. You know, you've been beaten up. You've been, you know, you probably don't have much of a bank account. You probably don't have a lot of self-esteem. You probably don't have very good relationships with those around you. You know, it's just a tough spot to be, all right? Again, that's the bad news. The good news is you showed up. You came in. You said to yourself, I don't want to be this person anymore. Let's see what options are out there. So, you know, you've already tried to quit cold turkey. You've tried to stop and stay stopped. You know, opiate addiction, the physical dependence, the withdrawal, I mean, it's just a brutal demon to beat. You know, why is that? It's a complicated answer. I'm not going to touch that today. There's a lot of reasons why opiate withdrawal is difficult. We don't really need right now to worry about why. Just accept as a fact that it is. Why do you have to accept that as a fact? Remember, the results speak, the record speaks. It's very rare that an individual who's addicted to opiates goes on to say, hey, you know, I've got 3 years, 5 years, 10 years clean and sober. I've been opiate-free for 10 years. It's extremely rare. It can happen. It's not impossible, but it's rare. Why is it rare? Because it's hard to do. If it was easy, everybody would come off of street opioids. You know, the stuff you're using before you got to Suboxone, buprenorphine, the stuff that you're addicted to on the street, that you're spending your money, your time, you know, every word that comes out of your mouth is a lie by the time you're chasing the stuff every day. If it was easy to stop these things, you would have stopped them years prior to getting to a doctor like me or to a drug like buprenorphine. If it was easy to do, you would have done it years ago. So would everybody that finds themselves addicted to opiates. And we wouldn't even have buprenorphine. It wouldn't even exist. It wouldn't even be a product. You wouldn't need buprenorphine because you could stop and stay stopped with the stuff you're using before you get to buprenorphine. But remember, the facts speak for themselves. The fact is there is buprenorphine, and it doesn't just exist as a niche product, it exists as what's become a wildly popular product. It's one of the most popular and profitable drugs over the past 10 years. Again, why is it? Because there's demand for it. There's demand for it because people can't stop opiates and stay stopped. It's very difficult to do. Again, don't get bogged into the why. That's a different topic. Just accept that it's tough to do. So you're on buprenorphine because you had the good sense to say, you know, I don't want to be the person chasing, you know, heroin or painkillers on the street anymore. I want to heal my relationships. I want to have some clarity of vision. You know, I don't want to be that person that's impaired mentally and you know, sluggish and blown out, quote unquote, on street opioids. I want to, you know, again, I want a bank account again. I want to be able to be a mom, a dad, an employee. So you say to yourself, what options are out there? You go online, you talk to your friends, and you hear about this buprenorphine stuff. You hear people talk about Suboxone and Subutex. You come in and see me, and you start using, me or a doctor like me, and you start using buprenorphine. Your life gets better, all right? Why does it get better? Again, let's keep it real simple. It gets better because you found a substitute that's overall safe, overall affordable, and overall practical, that is an alternative, a substitute to the street opioids that you're using before you get to buprenorphine. All right, so now we're at the point where you've just substituted buprenorphine for the other stuff. And you might say to yourself, well, this isn't good. Buprenorphine is just a substitute. Now I'm just addicted to buprenorphine. Well, you know, there's different ways to look at that. buprenorphine is just a substitute. Let's call it what it is. There's no doubt about it. It substitutes for, it's an overall, again, safe, affordable opioid. You don't feel impaired when you take it appropriately. You can't overdose if you try. You know, you're not going to get that sense of euphoria or you know, the mental impairment, the cognitive impairment from buprenorphine, as long as it's taken appropriately. It allows you to be an employee, to be a mom and dad, to be a functioning, productive member of society. Your self-esteem comes up, you heal relationships. It's overall a very good substitute. But at the end of the day, you know, you're still using an opioid. That's why it works to keep you from feeling opiate withdrawal. You got to bring a gun to a gunfight. You know, the only way to effectively fight opiate withdrawal is with another opioid. So again, enter buprenorphine. It's an overall safe opioid that, when taken appropriately, acts as a pretty good substitute. All right, so then you're on buprenorphine for, you know, 6 months, a year, 2 years, who knows how long. And you say to yourself, you know, this stuff's pretty good. My life's a lot better today than it was when I was using street opioids. But at the end of the day, now I'm tired of going to see this guy Gammons, and I'm tired of going to the pharmacy, and, you know, this is kind of getting old. I want to get off buprenorphine. So you might come into me, you might say, all right, now's the time for me to get off of this. And I might say, okay, you know, how are we going to do this? And you say, well, I'm going to use my willpower, and I got my family, and I got, you know, willpower. And I say, well, remember, we're stopping an opiate. That didn't work before with the street opiates. It's probably not going to work today with buprenorphine. It's not realistic to think somehow, some way, today it's going to work when it didn't work. You know, remember, you tried for years. The individual has tried for years to stop before they ever got to me or to buprenorphine. So this is why we talk from day one about the importance of psychosocial support. You know, legitimate behavioral change, developing reliable patterns of thought and patterns of behavior. You know, saying that you want to get off buprenorphine without having built a massive foundation of psychosocial support, that's kind of like me saying, you know, I want to be a doctor, because the doctor thing sounds kind of cool, and I want to be a doctor. You know, it sounds cool to be a doctor, they make a pretty good living. I want to be a doctor. But then somebody tells me, well, first you got to go to high school and you got to get pretty good grades that allow you to get into college. And when you get to college, you got to get pretty good grades there, and you got to take tough classes like physics or organic chemistry. And then you got to do really well. You know, you can't just pass them, you got to get like good grades in these. And then at the end of that, you know, you got to take an entrance exam called the MCAT, you know. And then I start saying to myself, well, I got to do all this stuff. I don't really want to do this. I just want to go right to the doctor part. Let's skip all the other crap. Well, the bottom line is it's not realistic for me to think that way. If I want to be a doctor, I got to be prepared to take little steps over a long period of time and stick with it. I got to work at it. I got to be patient with myself. I got to be willing to stick with it. Well, it's kind of the same thing as coming off buprenorphine. Again, if it was easy, everyone would do it. The fact is, it's rare that people do it, and the reason why is people are reluctant to put the time, energy, and patience into building this massive foundation of psychosocial support. Now, I'm going to cut right down to it. Some people don't like talking about this. I don't know exactly why, but you know, the thing we see consistently work for people is you know, something called 12-step support. Now, you know, there's a book. There's a book called Alcoholics Anonymous. There's a book called Narcotics Anonymous. The Alcoholics Anonymous book was written over 75 years ago. In that book, you've got 12 steps. It is kind of like an instruction manual. It tells you what to do. It's important that individuals find a mentor, a role model, somebody that's been through this crazy journey of recovery, that's been in their shoes, you know, and has come out the other side of it with a proven track record of success. A role model, a mentor, is very important in life. That person frequently will serve as a sponsor. Most people have heard the term sponsor. The word The word, well, the bottom line is your sponsor will take you through the book. You do all 12 of the steps out of the book, and that's what works. In fact, I've never seen it fail, not even one time. You get a book, you get a sponsor, you go all the way through the book, you start at step 1, you go all the way through to step 12, and you do it to the very best of your ability, and I, literally have never seen it fail. Now, on the other hand, you'll hear a lot of people say, if you noticed, I didn't say go to meetings. I didn't say, there's a lot of cliches with recovery, 90 and 90 something here, 90 meetings in 90 days. I don't tell people 90 and 90, I don't tell people go to meetings, because I don't see it work. If you think recovery, if you think, legitimate behavioral change is, you get in your car, you go to a meeting, you sit down, you say your thing, you have a smoke after the meeting, you get back in your car and you go home, and that means I'm an Alcoholics Anonymous, and that's what this is, and this is what works for people. It's not true. It doesn't work for people. I've never seen that work long term. That sense of fellowship and camaraderie that comes with going to meetings, that can work temporarily. I've never seen it work long term. If you notice, I choose my words very deliberately and specifically. Again, I'm a board-certified addiction medicine doctor. I've been doing this for a long time. I've seen, I'm sure, tens of thousands of patients in my career. And the thing we see work is getting a book, getting a sponsor, working directly out of that book, under direct sponsorship, and doing all 12 of those steps in that book. That's the one thing we see consistently produce legitimate behavioral change. And after all, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for change. We want you to change those patterns of thought and behavior that were in place during active addiction to something reliable. Those patterns of thought and behavior were not reliable. Again, the facts speak for themselves. You weren't in a good spot when you walked in the door for treatment for the first time. It's okay to admit it. It takes a big person to say, I blew it. I was in a bad spot. Again, the facts speak. There's room for improvement. Well, if we want to improve, we got to change. Real simple, right? How do we change? I think a very reliable place to start is in the book with a sponsor and doing all 12 of those steps. So, at the end of the day, let's kind of summarize this. Buprenorphine is a pretty good product. Is it a substitute? Absolutely. Yes, it is a substitute. Is it overall a pretty good substitute? I think it overall is a pretty good substitute. Again, when used appropriately, people tend to function at a very high level. They're able to work, they're able to have bank accounts, they're able to look people in the eye, and they're able to be moms and dads and employees. It's a pretty good product. If you want to get off buprenorphine, I encourage all my patients, hey, let's see if we can get you off this. Most people, again, you don't want to be on it in the first place, but you got what you got, whether you like it or not, really doesn't matter. That's beside the point. You get what you get. You got buprenorphine, you're on it, no big deal, get over it, don't feel guilty about it. But if you're not putting the effort in to achieve legitimate behavioral change, it probably isn't realistic to think you're going to get off of it and stay off of it long term. So these are just real simple things that I think people that use this product should have a grasp of. And again, I know this was long. I hope you hung in there with me. I hope it was helpful. Come into the office, schedule an appointment if you want to talk more about it. It would be my honor and pleasure to do so. And we'll wrap it up. Thanks again.